The coastal wind over Cape 3 Points smelled of salt and palm oil the night Zainabu Bakery told the moon she was done being meek. Moonlight spilled across her one-room apartment, catching on the scar that ran from the bridge of her nose to the corner of her lip, a souvenir from her first marriage. She faced the cracked mirror, adjusted the gold studs in her ears, and practiced her smile, sharp, confident, lethal. Her best friend, Tumi, lounged on the bed, scrolling through gossip blogs. 2 divorces before 35 and you still want another husband? She teased. I don't want another husband, Zainabu replied, sliding her feet into scarlet heels. I want a partner who doesn't mistake my kindness for docility. Tumi whistled. And tonight's contestant is Kwame Kojo, a schoolteacher. At Jalali's rooftop bar the band played high-life love songs, and warm bulbs strung overhead turned every glass of palm wine into liquid amber. Kwame sat in a corner, grading papers. He looked up when Zainabu approached, soft-eyed, dimpled, the kind of man who apologized when rain fell on strangers. Miss Bakery? He asked, rising. I prefer Zainabu, she said, offering a handshake strong enough to startle him. They ordered kelaweel and pepper slaw, and as the night deepened, their voices tucked into each other's silences. Kwame asked about her architecture diploma. She asked about children who wrote poems on the backs of math tests. When he confessed he still lived in his father's compound, Zainabu traced the rim of her glass. You obey Baba Kojo in everything? Kwame laughed. He raised me alone after Ma died. I owe him. Owe him, she echoed quietly, but don't chain yourself to him. At midnight thunder clapped over the gulf, and electricity flickered out. In the darkness Kwame reached for her hand. Her skin sizzled where his fingertips brushed. And for the first time in years, Zainabu felt hope that didn't taste like desperation. Yet as she drifted home through puddled streets she remembered her reflections warning, don't mistake romance for refuge. A matchstick between fingers can warm or burn, depending on who holds it. The next weeks unfurled like a Kent cloth, bold strips of color woven with quieter threads. Every afternoon Kwame walked Zainabu to Mamprobi Market, carrying her sketch pads while she bartered for nails and timber, raw materials for the women-led housing project she was designing on the city's edge. One humid Saturday he invited her to his classroom. 24 students greeted her in unison. Good morning, Auntie. Kwame's lesson on similes paused when a boy raised his hand. Sir, why is your face shiny? Kwame dabbed his forehead with a handkerchief the color of ripe peppers. The class roared. Zainabu watched him laugh at himself first, defusing the joke. The quiet storm had humor as his thunder. During lunch beneath an almond tree, she leaned against his shoulder. You're different when you teach, she murmured. He smiled. Teaching reminds me that words can build worlds. Words can also raise them. Her mind flicked to Baba Kojo, whom she had not yet met. Kwame's gaze clouded. My father is direct. Direct or domineering? He hesitated. Let's say the line between the two is blurred. She angled his chin toward her. Blurred lines cut the deepest. That night Kwame phoned his father. Baba, I'm bringing someone special home. Baba Kojo's baritone crackled through the speaker, a woman molded twice and broken twice? Kwame swallowed. She's more than the stories you've heard. Then let her prove it. Sunday dinner. No excuses. When Kwame relayed the exchange, Zainabu's lips curved, not in fear, but in readiness. I've never met a man I couldn't look in the eye, she said, flame dancing behind her pupils. Your father will be the first to blink. She meant confidence, Kwame heard challenge. And somewhere between her vow and his worry, thunder rumbled in the distance. Sunday arrived with harmattan dust that turned the sky the color of old parchment. Zainabu wore a royal blue bubu embroidered with gold thread and tied a crimson scarf over her braids. She balanced a tray of tiger nut pudding as Kwame drove them to the Kojo ancestral home, a rambling compound ringed by jacaranda trees. At the gate, a guard dog growled but retreated when Zainabu stared it down. Inside, cousins milled about, children chased goats, and somewhere high-life music floated from a radio. In the courtyard, Baba Kojo sat on a carved stool, his giraffe-tall frame draped in snow-white agbada. His eyes, flint, assessing, landed on Zainabu like a verdict. She bowed slightly. "Good afternoon, sir." He did not extend a hand. "So you are the hurricane my son has chosen." Kwame fumbled. "Baba, this is—" "I know who she is," Baba Kojo cut in. His gaze dropped to her scar. "Scars speak louder than tongues." "What does yours say?" Zainabu placed the pudding on a low table. "It says I survive fire without melting." Murmurs rippled among the relatives. Baba Kojo's eyebrow twitched, a warning or curiosity, she couldn't tell. During lunch, conversation tiptoed around politics and gospel songs until Baba Kojo asked, "How do you keep a home when you've already failed twice?" Forks froze in midair. Zainabu set her glass down. "Failure is staying in spaces that no longer honor you. Leaving is vision." Auntie Salma, petite, silver-haired, cleared her throat. "Baba, maybe ask instead what she's building next." Baba Kojo ignored the olive branch. "My son needs a wife who obeys." Zainabu's laugh was soft but volcanic. "Obedience without respect breeds resentment. I won't be the fertile ground for that seed." Kwame reached for her knee under the table, a silent plea. She patted his hand, one reassurance for him, one signal to the room that she would not shrink. When dessert ended, Baba Kojo rose. "Walk with me." He led Zainabu to a mango tree scarred by lightning. "My wife, Kwame's mother, died giving him life," he said. "I vowed no storm would harm him again." "I am not a storm," Zainabu replied, "but if you build cages around grown men, they will either suffocate or escape." He measured her words, then turned away. The conversation was not over, it had merely shifted underground, like water searching cracks in rock. Invitations printed on recycled bamboo paper fluttered across 3 regions. Zainabu insisted the ceremony be held at sunset on Axum Beach, where the ocean could bear witness and wash away old curses. Baba Kojo arrived in a convoy of land cruisers, his entourage carrying spices, cola nuts, and silent judgment. As drums thundered, Zainabu emerged barefoot in a flowing saffron dress, anklets chiming. Kwame waited beneath an arch of coconut fronds, heart pounding like dun-dun drums. During the libation rite, the priest poured gin onto sand. "May ancestors bless this union." Baba Kojo stepped forward. "And may stubbornness never set fire to this house." He glanced at Zainabu, then back to the priest. Zainabu smiled sweetly and whispered to Kwame, "Smell that?" "Salt?" he guessed. "No," she said, inhaling, "pepper." A warning. Mid-vows, seagulls shrieked overhead. Zainabu spoke first. "I pledge to honor your gentleness, Kwame, but never at the cost of my voice. Together we'll build a shelter where truth has no locked doors." Mirish murmurs of approval rolled through guests, except one. Baba Kojo's jaw flexed. Kwame's vow came second. His voice shook but held. "I will love you and safeguard your fire, even when it scares me." Auntie Salma wiped tears with a lace kerchief. Yet as the sun bled into the ocean, wind carried whispers that this marriage was already a battlefield disguised as paradise. At the reception, waiters served banku with red-hot Shido. Guests coughed and reached for water. Baba Kojo's entourage whispered that the food mirrored Zainabu's temperament, enticing but dangerous. Late into the night, Zainabu and Kwame sneaked away to a bamboo hut. Candlelight carved gold onto their skin. She traced his collarbone. "Your father thinks I will burn you," she murmured. Kwame cupped her cheek. "Then let's prove fire can also forge iron." Outside, palm trees rattled like drums of approaching conflict. 3 months of uneasy peace followed. Zainabu and Kwame rented a small bungalow on the edge of Sekondi. She spent days sketching blueprints for the Women's Housing Collective. He graded essays beneath a mango tree. but when Baba Kojo visited unannounced, entering their kitchen, criticizing her use of ginger in palm nut soup, fault lines widened. One humid dawn, Zainabu heard a knock. Opening the door, she found a wrinkled envelope sealed with wax. No return address. Inside, a letter in elegant script, brittle with age. If you're reading this, my husband has not changed. Protect the child who carries my name. Beware the firewood stacked in secret. Alma Kojo. Zainabu's pulse hammered. Kwame's mother left a warning. But what was the firewood? She drove to Auntie Salma's spice shop in the market. The air was thick with cloves and gossip. Zainabu spread the letter on a counter between jars of star anise. Salma read, brow furrowing. Firewood signifies a foundation for flame. Something hidden, waiting to ignite. Family curse? Zainabu asked. Or a debt unpaid, Salma suggested. Alma was quiet but clever. Look for what Baba Kojo hoards. That afternoon, Zainabu rifled through the old man's storage shed while he napped on the veranda. Behind rust-speckled bicycles, she discovered a teak chest. Inside lay yellowed documents, newspaper clippings, and a faded ledger detailing loans for illegal timber harvesting that led to a deadly landslide 25 years earlier. The victims included Alma's younger brother. Footsteps crunched behind her. She whirled to see Baba Kojo. What thief raids another man's memories, he growled. Truth isn't theft, she shot back, holding up the ledger. You buried guilt in a box, hoping rot would erase it. His face drained of color. Put that down. Or what? You'll shout loud enough to fell trees like you did long ago? Lightning cracked in the distance. He advanced, fists trembling, but halted when Kwame appeared, alarm in his eyes. Baba, what's happening? Your wife invades where she's unwelcome, Kojo snarled. Zainabu thrust the ledger toward Kwame. Read it. Your mother tried to warn me from the grave. Kwame scanned the pages, figures, signatures, death tallies. Hands shaking, he whispered, Baba, you caused the landslide? Baba Kojo's shoulders sagged under decades. I paid debts. What good is reviving ghosts? Zainabu stepped closer. Ghosts whisper until someone finally listens. I'm listening. Thunder rolled overhead. Fat raindrops splattered dust. Baba Kojo's eyes glistened, not with rage, but regret. Leave, he croaked to Kwame, unable to face sun or storm. Both of you. Back home, Kwame collapsed onto the sofa. Everything I believed, crumbling. Zainabu wrapped him in her arms. Ashes nourish new soil, she whispered. But first the firewood must burn. Outside, rain hammered rooftops like war drums. Inside, the match had been struck. The blaze promised to spare no one unwilling to face the truth. And somewhere beyond the thunder, cameras were being charged, Thames were sharpening, and a family gathering loomed on the horizon where a single slap would echo across 3 compounds. The morning sun over Sekondi pulsed like a forge, turning corrugated iron roofs into mirrors that bounced heat into every room. Inside the bungalow, the kitchen smelled of ginger, frying onions, and an emotion too sharp for any spice rack, insult. Zainabu adjusted her Ankara apron, humming while she crushed fresh cloves of garlic. The back door squeaked. Baba Kojo stepped in unannounced, wiping his dusty shoes on her doormat as though marking territory. You're early, she said without turning. I smelled smoke. His gaze roamed over simmering pots. You season fish before salting? No wonder my son's stomach rebels. She set the pestle down calmly. Your son's stomach rebels because stress knots it. Perhaps from constant criticism. He moved closer, towering beside the clay stove. In this family, elders correct, and wives receive correction. Zainabu dried her hands. Advice is a gift when wrapped in respect. Your words are barbed wire. He scoffed. A woman with 2 failed marriages should collect wisdom, not argue. Something splintered, first in her chest, then in the air. Her wooden spatula cracked against the counter. 2 failed men, not marriages. They broke, I didn't. Kwame rushed in, school bag slung over one shoulder. Baba, please. Silence, boy, Kojo barked, this is man's business. Zainabu stepped between them. If belittling your son proves your strength, perhaps you fear we won't see it otherwise. The old man's nostrils flared. Outside, a passing truck backfired like pistol shots. Inside, 2 wills locked horns. Kojo jabbed a finger at her scar. Mark my words, girl. Fire consumes its own house first. She leaned so close he smelled clove oil on her breath. And yet, without fire, a house remains a tomb, cold, airless, dead. Kwame's voice barely rose above a whisper. Baba, let's talk outside. Kojo stormed out, sandals slapping concrete. Zainabu exhaled shakily. Kwame reached for her hand, she eased away. I need you beside me, she murmured, not behind me. He swallowed. I'm trying. Try louder, she said, and returned to her pots though the stew now tasted of ash. After school, Kwame sat beneath the mango tree grading essays he couldn't read. Words blurred into shapes, a child's poem about thunderstorms, an algebra proof unfinished. His mind replayed the kitchen showdown on a loop. He stared at the ring on his finger, gold dulled by chalk dust, and wondered when vows became handcuffs. A colleague, Mr. Nyarko, approached. You look like rain without clouds. Kwame forced a smile. Family weather. Nyarko clapped his shoulder. Then carry an umbrella of your own. You can't hide under someone else's roof forever. The phrase bounced inside his skull all afternoon. Students gathered their books, he barely noticed the bell. Walking home, he rehearsed bold sentences he'd never said aloud. Baba, stop. Zainabu is my wife. Your fear is not my inheritance. Each attempt dissolved into the dust his shoes kicked up. At home he found Zainabu on the veranda, blueprints spread like wings across a table. She rubbed her temples. Bad day? He asked. She looked up, eyes ringed with exhaustion and something sharper. The microloan committee rejected my materials request. They heard rumors I'm unstable. Wonder who feeds them. Kwame's stomach nodded. I'll talk to Baba. Her laugh was brittle. Will you talk, Kwame, or will you whisper? He sank onto a stool, hands laced. I'm caught between the man who raised me and the woman I love. Love isn't enough if it's quiet, she said softly. I don't desire war, but I won't surrender myself as dowry to your father's ego. Kwame met her gaze. Give me time. Zainabu rolled the blueprints carefully. Time is a bridge or a wall. Decide which you're building. That night he lay awake, ceiling fan whirring overhead. Every turn of the blade sounded like a ticking clock, counting down to a choice he could no longer postpone. At dawn, a small figure in a teal wrapper shuffled up the sandy path, Auntie Salma, clutching a thermos that released lemongrass steam. Zainabu greeted her with a tired smile. Inside, Salma poured tea into 3 clay cups, adding a single drop of honey to each. Bitterness is cheap, she said, stirring, sweetness costs effort. Kwame joined, eyes puffy from sleeplessness. Salma's gaze darted between the couple. I come with wisdom brewed overnight. Zainabu sighed. Is it the kind that stings before it heals? Always, the old woman said, settling onto a bamboo stool. Fire, Zainabu, can cook soup or burn the hut. Which are you planning? Zainabu set her cup down. I won't let Baba Kojo trample me. Salma nodded. Stubbornness wears many uniforms. His is tradition. Yours is pride. Kwame's? Fear, Zainabu answered for him. Kwame flinched. Salma reached for his hand. Child, a man is not disloyal for disagreeing with his father. Roots feed the tree, but branches must stretch toward their own sky. He swallowed, tears threatening. How do I confront him without shattering what's left? Salma took a long sip. Truth spoken with love is a bow whose arrow pierces armor yet heals the wound. Preparation matters. She pulled a small carved box from her wrapper. Inside lay a folded sheet, thin, almost translucent. Your mother's second letter, Salma whispered. She wrote it after the landslide but never sent it. Kwame unfolded the page with trembling fingers. Kojo, one day our son will hear thunder in your voice and mistake it for the skies. Teach him the difference before pride teaches it for you. Salma's eyes glistened. Take this to your father, not as accusation, but as mirror. Zainabu inhaled, realizing the same fire that fueled her could fuel reconciliation if aimed wisely. Salma rose, wiping her palms on her wrapper. Remember, soup spoils when cooks quarrel. Stir together or starve separately. She left them in a silence thick with possibilities. Kwame traced his mother's handwriting. Zainabu rested her head on his shoulder. Outside, the first harmattan breeze of the season rattled papaya leaves like pages turning. A week later, the family gathered in Dewuro, a neighboring village, to name Kwame's cousin's newborn son. Colorful canopies shaded long rows of wooden benches, women in headwraps balanced trays of puff-puff, drums thumped like jubilant heartbeats. Zainabu wore a forest green Kent dress and carried a woven basket of baby blankets. She kept a respectful distance from Baba Kojo, who sat beside village elders, cane across his knees. During prayers, the chief elder invited family members to bless the child aloud. Baba Kojo stood, voice echoing. May you grow obedient and discerning, unlike certain mouthy women who enter homes to destroy order. Heads turned. Gasps fluttered. Zainabu felt heat crawl up her spine. She inhaled, counting heartbeats, 1, 2, 3, then she saw a smear of fresh amla on a serving platter nearby. Her fingers closed around it before thought intervened. In one swift arc, the sticky brown mass flew across the aisle and splattered Baba Kojo's pristine igbada. Silence imploded into chaos. Elders shouted, children squealed, smartphones shot upward recording. Baba Kojo stared at the blob sliding down his robe like an accusation. Zainabu's voice rang clear. Insults dressed as blessings are curses. I return yours, seasoned with yam flour. Kwame scrambled forward. Zainabu, please. She turned to him, eyes blazing. When he disrespects me, he disrespects us. Cameras buzzed. Someone live-streamed. Hashtags bloomed in real time, hashtag Amla Revenge, hashtag In-Law Drama. Baba Kojo's chest heaved. You witch! He lunged, but elders restrained him. Auntie Salma hurried over, gripping Zainabu's elbow. Enough! Leave with dignity before dignity leaves you. But dignity had already morphed into defiance. Zainabu shook free and marched toward the exit. Kwame hesitated, torn between bloodline and marriage, then followed her out into scorching midday light. Behind them, the naming ceremony shifted from celebration to tribunal. Inside phones, the village disgrace circuited the globe. 2 nights later, clouds bruised the sky, thunder muttering like an old man. Zainabu sat on their veranda packing a suitcase, essential clothes, her mother's Bible, rolled blueprints. Kwame paced. Running proves them right. Staying without respect proves me wrong, she countered. I need space before your father's words brand me permanently. Lightning flashed, the porch bulb flickered. Kwame's phone vibrated, Baba Kojo calling. He rejected it. Kwame, Zainabu said gently, if you can't confront him, confront the fear he planted. He swallowed. What if I lose everything, family, inheritance, my father's love? She crossed the space between them. Lose shackles, gain freedom. Rain began, needles against corrugated iron. Kwame stepped into the storm, fists clenched. After years of bowing, his spine finally felt its own weight. "Where are you going?" Zainabu called over the downpour. "To end this," he shouted back. "Or begin something new." She followed, umbrella forgotten, rain plastering her braids to her scalp. Together they drove through flooded streets to the Kojo compound, lightning strobing their resolve. Inside, relatives huddled under eaves. Baba Kojo stood in the courtyard, watching clouds as though daring them to break. Kwame approached, soaked. "Baba, we need to talk." Kojo's eyes narrowed. "Apologize for your wife's disgrace, and maybe we talk." "No," Kwame said, voice steady despite thunder. "We speak as equals, about respect, about mistakes, about the secret ledger that killed Uncle Edu." Gasps rippled, Auntie Salma stepped out of shadows, letter in hand. Kojo's face blanched. "Who fed you poison?" "Truth isn't poison," Kwame replied. "But secrets rot the soul." Rain hammered harder, turning courtyard dust into mud. Kojo's cane sank slightly, perhaps pride did, too. Zainabu's voice carried over the storm. "I'm ready to forgive, but not to forget. Will you face the past with us?" Lightning silhouetted father and son, two generations split by fear, joined by rain. Kojo closed his eyes, rain streaking his cheeks like tears. A rumbling somewhere between thunder and sob escaped him. "Come inside," he whispered. "All of you." Doors opened, relatives murmured, and for a heartbeat the storm outside felt weaker than the one finally breaking inside these walls, a rupture that might drown them or cleanse them, but would never leave them unchanged. The morning after the courtyard confrontation broke like a bruised dawn, beautiful, but sore-tinted at the edges. Zainabu stood on the bungalow's porch, her travel bag still half-packed from the night before, when her phone thrummed with a number she had deleted years ago. Senator Sool Ahmed, once her fiancé, now a headline-making power broker in Abuja, spoke before she could find breath. "Sool, Z, you trending girl. Tell me the Umla splash was staged. My colleagues are laughing their agbadas off." "Zainabu, nice to hear you, too." "Sool, I'm in Takoradi tonight. Let's talk business." "You still design?" "I have a coastal resort begging for your genius." Temptation laced his velvet baritone. A seat at Sool's table meant international contracts, red carpet invites, and a life free of in-law minefields. She opened her mouth to refuse, then remembered Kwame's trembling the night before, the uncertainty in his eyes. "Zainabu, text me the address." When she ended the call, guilt nipped her heels like a restless puppy. She slipped the phone in her pocket and returned inside, heart drumming a rhythm neither loyalty nor ambition could steady. That evening she dressed in a midnight green jumpsuit and told Kwame she needed fresh air. His smile was weary but trusting. "Come back to me," he said, kissing her forehead. Always, she lied to herself. The hotel lounge where Sool waited reeked of imported cigars. Gold cufflinks winked as he rose, arms wide. He looked richer, broader, but his eyes still carried the same predatory confidence that had once charmed her into abandoning her hometown dreams. They shared small talk over hibiscus cocktails until Sool leaned in. "Sool, marry a schoolteacher if you want simplicity, but dream bigger, Z. Design my resort as lead architect, 7-figure fee, equity stake, no strings. Except maybe dinner now and then." The invisible string tugged hard. She pictured her mother, once evicted from a market stall for unpaid rent. 7 figures would buy 10 stalls, 50, a whole block. She set her glass down. "Zainabu, send the proposal. I'll review it, with my husband." Shock flickered, then a slow grin. "Sool, tell your husband his father's baggage will crush you both. When you're done playing house, Abuja is a direct flight." She rose, pulse banging. Power must feel lonely if you still chase what you couldn't keep. Turning her back felt heavier than any slap. Outside, rain hissed on asphalt. The same storm that threatened to sweep her away now washed pride from her eyes. She dialed Kwame. "I'm coming home," she whispered. "I kept your soup warm," he replied, relief saturating every syllable. Umbrellas bloomed in the schoolyard like black mushrooms when Zainabu arrived after hours. Kwame's classroom lights glowed through rain stripes. Inside, he marked essays by lantern, electricity out again. She stood in the doorway dripping rainwater. "Sorry," she said. Kwame looked up, searching her face for a wound or confession. She offered both. They sat on two student desks pushed together, knees touching. She told him about Sewell's offer, every glittering carat and underlying catch. Tiny lightning reflected in his pupils as he listened, not flinching, not judging. When she finished, Kwame exhaled. "I'm angry," he admitted, voice even. "Not because you went. Because you almost had to." She frowned. "Had to?" "My silence cornered you," he said, thumb brushing hers. "If I defended you as fiercely as you defend us, Abuja wouldn't look like escape." Tears pooled, surprising them both. "You're not your father," she said. "And you're not your scars," he answered. She pulled the folded ledger from her bag. "This is leverage, but also poison. If we hurl it at him, we destroy him, maybe ourselves." Kwame traced the column of casualties, the ink blotted by rain. "I don't want revenge. I want healing." They clasped hands over the paper. Rain eased outside, surrendering to a hush that felt fragile as candle flame. Saturday dawn serrated the horizon in flaming oranges. Kwame parked outside his father's compound with Zainabu and Auntie Salma beside him. He carried two weapons, his mother's second letter and a courage he had never worn before. In the courtyard, extended family gathered for crisis talks. Low murmurs fell silent when the trio entered. Baba Kojo sat in a mahogany chair like a dethroned king guarding ruins. Kwame began, voice steady. "Baba, I have wronged you by hiding behind you. Today I stand beside my wife, your daughter now, too." Kojo's eyebrows bucked. "Daughter?" "She drenched me in stew and shame." Kwame lifted Alma's handwriting. Ma foresaw this. Her love letter to truth. He read aloud, voice fracturing on the final lines. The courtyard held its breath. When he finished, he knelt, not to beg, but to level his eyes with his father's. "Baba, I honor you by rejecting your fear. You taught me strength. Today I return the lesson." Gasps rustled. Baba Kojo trembled, cane rattling against stone. For the first time anyone could remember, he looked small. Zainabu stepped forward, offering the ledger. "Let's burn the past together, publicly. We'll pay restitution to landslide victims' families. Let us, and history will call you bold." Kojo's lips parted, but no words escaped. Auntie Salma laid a gentle hand on his shoulder. "Brother," pride buried Alma. "Don't let it bury us, too." A hush followed, long, sharp, painful. Then Kojo gripped the ledger with gnarled fingers. "Gather everyone tomorrow night," he croaked. "I will speak what should have been spoken 25 years ago." Kwame rose, eyes wet. Father and son exchanged a nod, imperfect, tentative, but real. A spine had grown, and a wall had cracked. The promised gathering unfolded in the town hall courtyard lit by kerosene lamps. Relatives, neighbors, phone cameras, everyone hungry for either reconciliation or spectacle. Baba Kojo stood at a podium built of reclaimed cedar. The ledger lay beside a ceremonial brass bowl ready for flame. Behind him, Kwame and Zainabu waited like sentries of a fragile future. Kojo's voice carried, "I confess my wrongdoing in the timber scheme that killed 4 souls, including my wife's brother. Fear of disgrace chained me. That chain now breaks." He struck a match, set the ledger aflame, and dropped it into the bowl. Gasps, tears, applause. A wave of relief washed through the crowd, until old Uncle Bediako, half-deaf and wholly tactless, shouted, "Nice speech, Kojo, but can your barren daughter-in-law give you a grandchild to clear the spirits?" The applause died. Heat lightning flickered. Zainabu inhaled, a slow, trembling breath meant to cool volcanoes. But Uncle's words had turned magma into eruption. She stepped forward, eyes like forged steel. "Uncle, I'd prefer my womb not be the village's chalkboard," she said. He snorted. Empty pots make the loudest noise. In that moment, all the insults she had swallowed congealed. She turned toward Baba Kojo, seeking his defense. He hesitated, one heartbeat too long. Smack. Her palm met his cheek with a pistol crack that stunned even the crickets. Cameras flashed white lightning. Baba Kojo's head jerked, his cane clattered. Silence grew fangs. Zainabu's chest heaved, her hand stung. She hadn't planned it, muscle memory of survival had taken the wheel. She addressed the crowd, voice low but resonant. "A family that silences women murders its own future. If my childlessness offends you, birth your own conscience first." Then she turned on her heel and walked into the night, sandals slapping earth like war drums. Kwame hesitated only a second before sprinting after her, pushing through paparazzi wannabes. Gossip detonated online under the tag hashtag slap of the century. Within hours, memes, think pieces, and slow-motion edits flooded social feeds from Accra to Atlanta. Auntie Salma found Baba Kojo still frozen. She touched the imprint on his cheek, already blooming red. "Pain teaches fastest," she murmured. Dawn found Zainabu holed up in a rented fisher's shack overlooking the Atlantic. Waves slapped rocks with the same rhythm as last night's slap replaying in her mind. She scrolled through social media, some praised her courage, others called her feral. None understood the years that birthed that palm. Kwame arrived with thermos in hand. He set it on a crate beside her. "Ginger tea," he said. "For tremors." She didn't speak. He joined her on the splintered bench as gulls wheeled overhead. "Kwame, I'm sorry I froze." "Zainabu, I didn't give you time." "Kwame, basketball teaches me, first reaction isn't always best." "But I had none." He poured tea into enamel cups. Steam clouded their silence. A phone buzzed, Kwame's. He answered, expression tightening. After a tense yes, "Baba," he hung up. "He wants me to renounce you publicly, disown you, or lose my share of the cocoa farm and family house." Zainabu's stare stayed on the horizon. "What will you choose?" Her voice was a feather underlaid with steel. Kwame set his cup down. "I choose us. But choosing us means choosing you and the part of me afraid to lose everything. I need to confront both." He reached into his bag, pulled out 2 envelopes, one containing the deed to his farm inheritance, a copy, but symbolic, the other, Sewell's slick-printed resort proposal Sewell had couriered after all, addressed to Mrs. Zainabu Ahmed, Kojo optional. Kwame held them out. "Fire cleanses. Which burns tonight?" Zainabu blinked surprise. "You'd torch your inheritance?" "I'd torch the chains disguised as inheritance," he said. She took both envelopes, weighed them like justice scales. Then she leaned forward, lit a match from the gas lantern, and set Sewell's proposal ablaze. Pages curled black, falling to ash on sand. "Your fear isn't the cocoa farm," she said. "It's thinking your worth hinges on your father's approval." She pressed the deed back into his palm. "Keep this. Build schools, not walls." Kwame's eyes glistened. Their foreheads met, ocean spray cool on their cheeks. Behind them, city lights flickered with rumors and ultimatums. Ahead, the horizon waited, vast and scriptless. They rose together, hand in hand, stepping into salt mist dawn, 2 silhouettes welded by fire, bound for the fiercest chapters yet to come. Harmattan had given way to the first wet season downpour, the kind that hammers zinc roofs like angry drums. Zainabu and Auntie Salma slogged through ankle-deep gutters toward the Kojo compound, a single sheet of parchment sealed in a clear plastic sleeve tucked beneath Salma's armpit. Lightning flashed, turning the world white. Zainabu tasted metal in the air. "Are you certain about reading it tonight?" she shouted above the rain. Salma's wrapper clung to her calves. Truth doesn't wait for the weather. In any case, the sky is already testifying. Inside the compound, kerosene lamps bobbed like fireflies. Relatives huddled beneath eaves, neighbors craned necks, eager for the next chapter of the ongoing Kojo saga. Baba Kojo stood alone on the veranda, cane planted like a boundary stake. Water streamed from the edges of his igbada, but he made no move to retreat indoors, as though permitting the storm to baptize him. Salma handed him the sleeve. From Alma. The letter she wrote the night Adu died. His fingers hesitated, trembling. He peeled the plastic away, careful as a surgeon. The rain smudged the ink, but Alma's elegant script remained legible. Kojo, pain turns men into prisons or bridges. Choose. Our son must learn that tears are not weakness but water for new seeds. Free him by freeing yourself. A sound escaped him, a brittle half-laugh, half-sob. Why now? Zainabu stepped forward, soaked braids clinging to her shoulders. Because your silence is hurting the man I married, and the woman I am becoming. Thunder snarled. Baba's eyes glimmered beneath the veranda lamp. You want me to confess, again? The world already mocks me. Confession isn't humiliation, she said, voice steady. It's surgery. Expose the wound, or it festers. He gripped his cane so tightly his knuckles blanched. Come tomorrow. Not tonight. Salma shook her head. Tomorrow your courage may drown. Read it to Kwame while the sky is listening. For a moment he looked as old as the clay jars lining the veranda, tough, sun-baked, but spider-cracked. Then he nodded once, a king laying down arms, before turning to call for his son. News travels faster than electricity in Sekondi. By the next evening the compound was swollen with curious bodies. Plastic chairs scraped across courtyard cobblestones, creating an impromptu amphitheater. Despite viral memes portraying her as a villainous daughter-in-law, villagers now gazed at Zainabu with wary respect. No one could claim she feared confrontation. She arrived wearing a simple indigo wrapper and no makeup, battle wounds visible, puffy eyes from sleepless nights, a faint swelling on the hand that had delivered the slap. Kwame met her at the gates, breath steaming in the cool, rain-washed dusk. You didn't have to face them all again, he murmured. If I run, she replied, what stops every other woman they label too much from running? Together they paced the gauntlet of whispers toward the veranda. Baba Kojo waited, seated beside the extinguished brass bowl that had burned the ledger. Thick candles replaced kerosene lamps, their flames bowed in the breeze. When Zainabu took her seat, the courtyard hushed. Baba cleared his throat, no microphone, yet his grovelled baritone filled every corner. I wronged my family and my ancestors, he began, voice steady but raw. And I wronged this woman, my daughter, by passing my fear to her husband. He raised Alma's letter. My wife foresaw my downfall. Tonight I will not read her words alone. Zainabu Bakery Kojo, will you lend them your fire? A ripple of surprise swept the crowd. Zainabu stood, candlelight dancing on her scar. With deliberate breath, she read Alma's letter aloud, each sentence punctuated by a hush so deep one could hear goats bleating 3 compounds away. When she finished, she folded the paper and returned it to Baba. He closed his eyes, tears slipping free. I have carried guilt like a sack of wet sand. My silence was self-punishment, my harshness, a shield. He turned to Kwame. My son, forgive me for molding you in stone when you were meant to be wood, flexible, living. Gasps, sniffles. Zainabu realized half the courtyard was weeping, men and women alike grappling with the sight of a patriarch unmasking. But healing is never tidy. In the back row Uncle Bidiako's voice crackled, words are cheap. What of land, inheritance, compensation? Suspense thickened again. Baba nodded once. Tomorrow we meet the landslide families. I will sign my cocoa farm as a memorial trust. Uncle's mouth clicked shut. Zainabu caught Kwame's gaze. A storm had indeed begun, but its winds could be redirecting toward harvest rather than ruin. Midnight. Tapered candles guttered in the hallway as cyclone-level winds swept inland. The compound's galvanized iron roof panels quivered, each gust sounding like a war drum overhead. Zainabu couldn't sleep. She paced their old childhood guest room. Kwame, eyes open, tracked her stride. Come sit, he urged. I've faced contractors with bulldozers and politicians with claws, she muttered, yet one old man's apology leaves me dizzy. A crash interrupted, roof panel ripping loose outside. They rushed into the corridor where rain whipped through a broken louver window. Cousins scurried with buckets, Auntie Salma planted towels beneath widening puddles. Sudden keening rose from the rooftop. A silhouette swayed against lightning strobe, Baba Kojo, cane-braced, attempting to secure the flapping sheet of metal. Baba! Kwame bolted up the staircase, Zainabu at his heels. The roof was a slick tabletop, rivulets of water rushing downward. Baba battled the wind, both hands on the panel's edge. Kwame reached him, feet skidding. Let it go! We'll replace it. No, the old man shouted back. I won't let this house break again. Lightning forked, illuminating the jagged tear in the sky and every crease in Kojo's face. Zainabu crawled low, fingers searching for purchase. Listen, she yelled. A roof can be rebuilt, your son cannot. In that flash she saw fear carved deep behind the patriarch's eyes, the same fear that had kept him silent for decades. A second gust snapped the sheet free, sharp metal edges whirled like machetes. Kwame tackled his father, rolling them clear as the panel sailed over the courtyard wall and crashed into a mango tree below. Zainabu grabbed Kojo's cane before it slid away, then dove to shield both men from flying debris. When thunder retreated, the three remained huddled, hearts drumming in unison. Rain sluiced over them, washing grime and tears alike. Kojo coughed out a brittle laugh. I suppose even old iron must bend. Zainabu met his gaze. Better bent than broken. They descended together, soaked but whole, thunder fading behind them like a giant exhaling. Dawn cracked open peach and gold. News of the rooftop incident merged with slapping memes into a single trending vortex, #KojoStorm. Reporters camped outside the compound gate, eager for a fresh headline. At noon, Baba Kojo emerged, leaning on a new ebony cane Zainabu had carved overnight from the fallen mango limb. He wore a simple white tunic, no regal embroidery, no entourage. A makeshift podium faced villagers and journalists. Kwame and Zainabu flanked him, Auntie Salma just behind. Kojo cleared his throat. To every family wounded by my greed, I apologize. Today I transfer full ownership of my cocoa farm to a trust that funds housing and education for widows and orphans, administered by Zainabu Bakery Kojo Architects and the Sekondi Women's Collective. He nodded toward Zainabu. The crowd erupted in astonished applause. He wasn't done. I begged the forgiveness of my daughter-in-law whom I shamed. He turned, slow, deliberate, and knelt before Zainabu. A gasp rippled through the throng, cameras clicked in machine gun bursts. Stand up, Baba, she whispered, eyes glistening. Not until you accept my apology, he answered, voice quake-soft. She placed a trembling hand on his shoulder. I accept, but rise for yourself. Kneeling any longer is self-punishment, not penance. He obeyed, wobbling upright. In that instant 3 generations felt an invisible chain snap. From the press queue a familiar smirk appeared, Senator Sul Ahmed, entourage in tow, hoping to hijack the moment. Kojo family, always dramatic, he called, flashing perfect teeth. Zainabu, Abuja still bids. Kwame stepped forward, microphoneless yet thunderous. Senator, she already has a project, building futures here at home. But feel free to donate. Laughter rippled, Sul's grin withered. Cameras captured his retreat. New hashtag Kwame Clapback. 2 months later, the once scandalous courtyard buzzed with hammers, drills, and the fragrance of fresh timber. The newly formed Alma Memorial Women's Co-op broke ground on its first eco-housing block. Zainabu, helmet tilted atop her braids, directed crews while Auntie Salma negotiated suppliers under a shade tent. Baba Kojo arrived daily at dawn, now a silent apprentice learning to sand boards and listen more than he spoke. Kids from the local primary school, proud owners of freshly donated textbooks courtesy of the Farm Trust, ran errands between wheelbarrows and water coolers. That evening, when the sun melted into a peach horizon, long trestle tables lined the courtyard. Lanterns hung from tamarind branches, palm wine flowed beside steaming platters of jollof and suya. No cameras, no reporters, just family, neighbors, and the choir that had once refused to sing at Zainabu's wedding but now rehearsed joyful hymns. Kwame tapped a glass. A toast to bridges where walls once stood. Baba Kojo lifted his calabash. And to my daughter's fierce hands. He winked, the crowd chuckled. Zainabu's turn. She laid a palm on her belly, barely rounded but unmistakably expectant. Gasps burst like fireworks. Life, she said, voice thick, comes when a home is ready. Our home is ready. Kwame's eyes flooded, Baba Kojo covered his mouth with trembling fingers, overwhelmed. Auntie Salma shouted praise names into the sky, drums picked up the rhythm. Under starlight, they danced, gray heads and newborn dreams swirling as one. The cocoa farm's future scholars giggled between elders' legs, the housing frames behind them rose like silhouettes of possibility. Much later, after music faded and candles guttered, Zainabu leaned against Kwame's shoulder, watching fireflies weave gold stitches through night air. Remember the day you asked time to choose between bridge or wall? She murmured. He kissed her forehead. We chose bridge. Across the yard, Baba Kojo dozed in a rocking chair, cane resting beside him, peace smoothing the lines of a face once carved in iron. And above them, the same sky that had witnessed storms now shimmered benign and infinite, as if to say, every fire that burns to ash leaves space for forests yet unborn. The end.